This is a CBS News special report. I'm Lindsay Reiser. We're coming on the air because New York City officials are giving an update on the investigation into the shooting death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Let's listen.
Was the victim of a senseless act of violence. Our officers have been working around the clock. Many of them did not go home to pursue this individual. It was crucial that we were able to remove him off the streets of America, and we were going to seek him out no matter where he was at the time. And so this is a strong person of interest. The police commissioner and chief of detectives will go over where we are right now in the investigation. He matches the description of the identification we've been looking for. He's also in possession of several items that we believe will connect him to this incident. How did we do it? Good old-fashioned police work. The chief of detectives and the police commissioner made the decision to release as much of a photo that we had at the time. We sent it across the country, and someone, a McDonald's employee, did something we ask every American to do. If you see something, say something, but most importantly, do something. And they did. And because of that, we believe we have a strong person of interest to deal with this case. I want to now turn it over to the police commissioner of the city of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Earlier this morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male, on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen, targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder. They also recovered clothing, including a mask consistent with those worn by our wanted individual. Also recovered was a fraudulent New Jersey ID, matching the ID our suspect used to check into his New York City hostel before the shooting incident. Additionally, officers recovered a handwritten document that speaks to both his motivation and mindset. NYPD detectives are en route to Pennsylvania as we seek to interview the subject further. This apprehension is thanks to the tireless work of the greatest detectives in the world and, of course, the strong relationships we have with our local law enforcement partners. On every level, local, state, and federal, we all serve the same public safety mission. And this case, which captured the attention of an entire nation, is another example of how connected we are and how important it is to work together, share information, and pursue every lead. For just over 5 days, our NYPD investigators combed through thousands of hours of video, followed up on hundreds of tips, and processed every bit of forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, IP addresses, and so much more to tighten the net. We deployed drones, canine units, and scuba divers. We leveraged the domain awareness system, Argus cameras, and conducted aviation canvasses. And our detectives also went door to door, interviewing potential witnesses and doing the good old-fashioned police work that our investigators are famous for. This combination of old-school detective work and new-age technology is what led to this result today. And we must also acknowledge the instrumental role the media and the public played in this case. The images that we shared with the public were spread far and wide, and the tips we received led to the recovery of crucial evidence. We should never underestimate the power of the public to be our eyes and our ears in these investigations. This is the third time in 3 weeks that a member of the public has seen something and said something and done something that led to a high-profile arrest. The triple stabbing homicide in Manhattan, the gunpoint robberies in Queens during which an NYPD officer was shot, and now this. Now, the case will continue through the criminal justice process. And while we are proud of today's accomplishment, we must, of course, remember that a family is in mourning. I want to again extend my sympathies to Brian's family, his co-workers, and all who knew him. Finally, I want to thank the women and men of the NYPD, especially our Detective Bureau personnel, with a strong assist from our intelligence analysts. We also thank the SAC of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division, Leslie Rodriguez-Bekshies. And I want to commend the staff of the Manhattan DA's office, and especially DA Alvin Bragg. He has been working with us 24/7 on this case, and I am incredibly grateful for his partnership. I'll now pass it along to our great Chief of Detectives, Joe Kenny, who will provide additional information. Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. As the Commissioner stated earlier, a male was taken into custody today in Altoona, Pennsylvania this morning. He has been identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione. He's a male, 26 years old. He was born and raised in Maryland. We know he has ties to San Francisco, California, and his last known address was Honolulu, Hawaii. He has no prior arrest history in New York. Members of the NYPD Detective Bureau are currently traveling to Pennsylvania with members of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to interview this subject. This case was brought to a successful conclusion based on the coordinated effort between numerous NYPD units, including the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau, our federal partners at the FBI, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and, of course, members of the Altoona Police Department in Pennsylvania. On Thursday, one day after this crime was committed, the NYPD released a photo of the shooter in this case. This picture was obtained by the NYPD during one of their extensive video canvasses. We took that photograph and we asked for the public's help in identifying this subject, and the public responded. Hundreds of tips began to pour into our hotline. Each tip was investigated thoroughly, and we began to release additional photographs as they came into our possession. The NYPD provided these photos to numerous media outlets. Local, national, and international outlets released the photo via television, print, social media, and online content. Luckily, a citizen in Pennsylvania recognized our subject and called local law enforcement. Members of the Altoona Police Department responded to the call, and based on their investigation, they notified the NYPD. This investigation is still active and ongoing. Thank you very much.
And then we'll... Mark?
I had a couple questions about the document that he was found in possession with. Can you go a little bit more in depth about those motivations that you mentioned? Was that CEO specifically named in that document? Was there anything more about him wanting to go after others? And also in that document, was there any indication that explains us how the level of detail that he went into killing him? Like, is there anything?
Like I said, that document is currently in the possession of the Altoona Police Department as part of their investigation. But just from briefly speaking with them, we don't think that there's any specific threats to other people mentioned in that document. But it does seem that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
Over here, sir.
MJ?
Chief, was the suspect wearing a mask at the time he was spotted in the McDonald's? And also, criminal cases often have a linchpin. Can you point to a single linchpin that helped crack this case?
There's numerous linchpins in this case, in the fact that we've recovered an enormous amount of forensic evidence, an enormous amount of video, and once again, with your help and the public's help. So I really couldn't put it on one thing, but if I had to, it would be the release of that photograph from the media.
Dean?
You said he had a passport on him. Do you believe he was trying to flee the country? And also, are you still looking for any evidence in Central Park in regards to the bike?
We had divers in the water yesterday that came up negative results. The passport, we don't believe that he was planning on doing any traveling at this time. We don't think he, at this point in our investigation, we don't think he was trying to flee the country.
The person at the McDonald's, were they buying food? What were they doing at that exact moment?
He was an employee at the McDonald's.
Right. But what was the suspect doing?
He was sitting there eating.
Will the suspect be brought back to New York and charged here? And when?
We're going to have to work that out with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He's going to be facing gun charges there, and at some point we'll work out through extradition to bring him back to New York to face charges here, working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
Hi, Anita from the New York Post. I was just hoping to get more details on the capture itself. Did he put up a fight? Did he say anything to cops? And we've also reported that he published online anti-healthcare industry rantings. Can you share with us some of the services that he posted on?
We're still working through his social media. We're going to do a complete scrub of that. Preliminarily, like I said, he seems that he has some ill will toward corporate America, but that will all come out as part of our investigation. We're not done here. We're still going to be putting this together. We're still going to be working very hard to bring this to a successful conclusion.
And the capture itself, did he put up a fight? Did he say anything to police?
I don't have that information.
Oh, sorry. Can you elaborate on how he got there, the path he took from Port Authority and on the George Washington Bridge to Altoona, PA? Same
thing. This just happened this morning. We'll be working, backtracking his steps from New York to Altoona, Pennsylvania.
I was going to ask if we knew anything, if he took a bus to Philadelphia first and then somehow got to Altoona. But
We're still working on that. We're still working through that.
Is there any indication that anybody else was helping him from the inside, you know, as far as tracking the CEO's movements?
Once again, we're still working this investigation very hard. It's not at its conclusion yet. That could come out during our investigation, but as of right now, we have no indication that that took place.
Chief, did he have any weapons or anything like that with him when he was arrested?
He was in possession of a ghost gun that had the capability of firing a 9mm round and a suppressor.
Can you get into a little bit about the technical aspects of the investigation? I know you deployed an unprecedented amount of technology. You also activated the Sentry program through Intel. Can you talk about how that is going to play into actually building the case as far as cell phone and all of the other technical aspects of what you've done?
In this case, it really came down to technology was the use of drones in Central Park, and really comes down to the video canvas that we did. We used every source of video that we could collect, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours from hundreds of sources, and that helped bring this to where we are right now.
The gun is it believed to be the gun he used in the shooting? And there was some talk that it was a veterinarian type gun. Is that accurate?
No, as of right now, the information we're getting from Altoona is that the gun appears to be a ghost gun. May have been made on a 3D printer. The capability of firing a 9mm round. Obviously, that will come out during our ballistics testing.
Oliver?
Yeah, Oliver Barnes from the Financial Times. Do you have any indication how long this handwritten, is it a handwritten manifesto that you found on the suspect? And then also whether or not he put it online at all?
Don't know if it's online. As of right now, it's a handwritten 3-page document.
Chief, does he have ties to that area, and was he someone who you knew by name before his arrest?
We believe he may have attended college in Pennsylvania, but like I said earlier, he has ties to Maryland and California and Hawaii.
And you knew him by name before today? Was his name on your radar?
Excuse me?
Was his name on your radar? Was he someone who you had been looking into before his arrest?
No, we did not have his name prior to today.
Brent, okay. Does he have any prior arrests? I know there were none for New York City, but is there any prior arrests anywhere else in the country?
We have not come across any arrests in the country.
Chief, hi, how are you? On two things. On the ghost gun, is it something you're going to be looking into to see if he made it himself? And can he make that himself? Or would he have to buy the gun the way it was?
No, once again, that'll be part of our investigation as we follow up.
I mean, obviously he's going to face murder charges, but is there any chance that he could face any other charges because he was targeting the CEO and because of his writings and other things that we're now finding on him? Federal charges or
that determination will be made by Alvin Bragg.
Yes, what connections does he have in Pennsylvania that you know of, and are they in Altoona specifically?
We believe he attended college in Pennsylvania.
Does he know anybody in Pennsylvania?
Wouldn't be able to tell you that.
All right, we're going to take one more question on the shooting, Marla, and then we're going to go. You talk about the manifesto having said things against corporations, but specifically UnitedHealthcare, and do you believe that Mangione acted alone?
We believe at this point, our investigation is leaning toward he was acting alone. So, like I stated earlier, we're still working through the investigation. We're not stopping today. And as far as the manifesto, like I said, I don't have the complete details of that. It's in the possession of the Altoona Police Department.
We're going to shift to opt-out.
Yep. Good job, Chief. Commissioner. Chief Mangione.
Welcome back, everybody. This is a CBS News special report, and we have been listening to a law enforcement update on a person of interest being questioned in the case of the death of the United CEO in the middle of Midtown Manhattan last week. I want to bring in Anna Schechter. She leads the CBS News crime beat, covering crime and public safety for CBS News and Stations. Anna, thank you so much for being here. I want to go through some of what police say he had on him, this person of interest. Luigi Mangione, 26-year-old male, a firearm and a suppressor on his person consistent with the weapon used in the murder, fraudulent New Jersey ID matching the ID that the suspect used to check into that New York City hostel, a handwritten document that speaks to a motive and mindset, and he was sitting there in the McDonald's eating. How do you square that behavior with someone who was on the run in such a high-profile case?
Well, I mean, he had to eat, and he was able to maintain his composure right after firing those shots off in cold blood. So it indicates that this is a person who was devoted to his cause. He wrote the words deny, depose, and delay on the bullet casings that were found at the scene of the crime. There was Monopoly money in the backpack that was recovered from Central Park that he dropped. And now this 3-page manifesto, all of this kind of speaks to a person who is motivated by an extreme ideology, and it all puts together a clearer picture of this person of interest and why he would do what he would do. That was the big question, why he would do it. The fact is that he actually did a lot right to cover his tracks, but not enough. Pulling that face mask down was his first mistake when he checked into that hostel.
A flirtatious moment with the clerk.
Exactly. That was a mistake. And then staying close by. I mean, Altoona, Pennsylvania is not that far away from New York City, but he was able to cover his tracks that it took 5 days for the NYPD to figure out which bus he might have taken to depart New York City. So that was a big question, and it was really a citizen tip that was called in that is why we're sitting here right now.
Somebody who was working at that McDonald's. Anna Schechter, thank you so much. I want to bring in CBS News law enforcement contributor Richard Esposito. He's a former NYPD deputy commissioner. Thank you so much for being here. What does it take to comb through the massive network of surveillance videos and photos, not only in New York City, but potentially bus stops along the route to trace his movements?
It takes hundreds of people and thousands of hours. That's why people are looking tired. You could see the chief of detectives. He's been working day and night, and as has everyone in his command and in the intelligence command and in federal agencies. It's been a massive effort to comb through all of that video, all of those images.
And that said, are you surprised that it took police 5 days to find this person of interest?
I'm not. This person made a concerted effort to escape and did his best to move away from cameras when he could. He made mistakes, as Anna Schechter pointed out, but he also did a lot of things right, moving through Central Park, taking buses where you don't need ID, you don't go through security. You can, in fact, put a handgun in a knapsack and get on a bus. So he did a lot of things to keep his movements secure.
What happens next in this case?
I think Chief Kenny said that really well. He said there's a lot more to be done. You can hear all the excitement and the euphoria of thinking they have the person, but now they have to button that all down. Is the gun that he had on him now the gun that was used in the shooting? If not, where's that gun? Do the fingerprints match to any evidence forensic at the scene? Is the manifesto something that goes beyond motive and says he's going to do something? It doesn't sound like it does off the top. So that's what goes on now.
Richard Esposito, thank you so much for being with us. Once again, we've been following breaking news after a multi-state manhunt. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is in custody in Pennsylvania as a person of interest in the deadly shooting of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Lindsay Reiser.
Made the decision to release as much of a photo that we had at the time. We sent it across the country, and someone, a McDonald's employee, did something we ask every American to do. If you see something, say something, but most importantly, do something. And they did. And because of that, we believe we have a strong person of interest to deal with this case. I want to now turn it over to the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Earlier this morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male, on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person, as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder. They also recovered clothing, including a mask consistent with those worn by our wanted individual. Also recovered was a fraudulent New Jersey ID, matching the ID our suspect used to check into his New York City hostel before the shooting incident. Additionally, officers recovered a handwritten document that speaks to both his motivation and mindset. NYPD detectives are en route to Pennsylvania
As law enforcement just announced, a man is under arrest in Pennsylvania. Police say he has a gun consistent with the weapon used to kill UnitedHealthcare's CEO in Midtown Manhattan last week. At this point, he is a person of interest being questioned. Officers in Pennsylvania took 26-year-old Luigi Mangione into custody for an unrelated incident in the city of Altoona, which is roughly 2 hours east of Pittsburgh. A source says he was spotted at a McDonald's. An employee is the one who called local police to tip them off. We're also told he was carrying fake IDs, including one from New Jersey that was consistent with the one that he used to check into a New York City hostel the week of the murder. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he is a strong person of interest in the case. Anna Schechter has been following this case for us. She joins me in Studio 57. Anna is the senior coordinating producer for our CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit. A lot of information, Anna, was given in that press conference. For anybody who's just joining us, help but catch us up to speed on some of the top lines.
Well, we knew this morning that the person of interest had gotten into a bus about a half an hour after he carried out the attack, and we didn't know where he went. But earlier today, Altoona police got a call from a local McDonald's that somebody that matched the description that they had seen on the news was actually there eating inside the McDonald's. The local police came quickly, apprehended him, brought him in for questioning. What did they find? A ghost gun with a silencer, a gun capable of firing a 9mm round. That's all we can report at this time. In addition to that ghost gun, also a fake New Jersey ID, the same one that the person of interest used to check into the hostel. Also, a 3-page handwritten manifesto listing grievances against the healthcare industry. All of this, when you pool this together with the monopoly money found in the backpack, the words deny, delay, and depose written on the bullet casings that were recovered at the scene, all this points to a motive, a person angry about the healthcare insurance industry. This is a young man here, 26 years old, a Penn graduate. That's the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school. His most recent address was in Hawaii, but he graduated from Penn in 2020. He grew up in the Baltimore area. This is someone of a privileged background, well-educated. So this will be sending shockwaves across those communities at that time. Still a lot of questions to be answered.
Right. I mean, about those questions, we heard reporters shouting questions at law enforcement. And a lot of what we heard was this is still an active investigation. It is believed at this point in the investigation that he acted alone, that he did show an ill will toward corporate America. That was sort of the most detail that we got about maybe those handwritten writings or interactions with police. But there are still so many questions about how he knew, for example, that Brian Thompson would be at that exact location, going in that exact door at that exact time. I mean, there's still so much for investigators to piece together, and his movements before and after.
Why did he home in and target this particular CEO at this particular location? What was that drove him to that? Lots of questions we are looking at, and investigators have been combing through. There were so many tips that came in. They were running down profiles on multiple names. So they were wading through a sea of tips, also hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of surveillance footage. So that takes time. And there's a reason why this took some time. And there's a reason why the FBI and the NYPD were asking the public to help. That actually is, in fact, ultimately the reason why police were able to apprehend him, is somebody saw him, realized he matched the photos that had been put out, and
somebody not in New York City.
That's right, not in New York City, but not that far away. There were concerns that this would become an international manhunt because so much time had passed, and that becomes a much more complex operation. He stayed relatively close to New York City. He was in the Northeast. He had been traveling by bus, so that, you know, he didn't jump on an airplane, which would have also complicated things.
But he had a passport on him.
He had a passport. And our earlier reporting indicated multiple fake IDs, so he had really planned this, prepared for this. What's interesting to me is that this is a person who doesn't appear to have like a lengthy military background, but who could stay pretty calm. You know, the experts that we were talking to, watching that footage of him actually firing the shot, said, well, it doesn't look like a professional hitman. But he had some facility with the gun, and he could stay relatively calm.
And wherewithal when it jammed.
Yes, and fix that jam and fire off another round, really done in cold blood. We've reviewed the video, and it was at least 3 shots. The victim was stumbling, and then he continued this horrific attack in cold blood.
Let's go ahead and bring in CBS News correspondent Tom Hansen, who joins us now outside at New York City Hall. Tom, what more are we learning about this person of interest and what charges he may face?
Yeah, well, as you heard in that press conference, Lindsay, he's going to be facing charges in Pennsylvania. Also, he's going to be facing extradition back here to New York. One of the key things that authorities are going to be looking into is, of course, the weapon that he used to murder CEO Brian Thompson. We heard that it was a ghost gun. That means that there is likely no serial number. It's going to be very difficult to trace. One of the interesting things about that that you heard in that press conference, they said that it could have been 3D printed. So he could have actually manufactured this gun himself. We don't know that for sure, but it would definitely align with the resolve that he had in a targeted killing like the one that we saw several days ago. So there's still a lot of information that we are learning. We're also going to presumably learn exactly how he got to Altoona, Pennsylvania. That was something that authorities were not specific on. A lot of details coming out of that press conference, but a huge moment today in this sprawling investigation. We saw that the investigation fanned out as far as Atlanta, Georgia, and a key development in Altoona, Pennsylvania today. Lindsay?
Tom Hansen, I spoke with Rich Esposito, formerly of the NYPD. He said that the daunting task of taking all that camera footage from New York City and trying to piece together his movements, it is such a tiresome task. Hundreds of officers working so many hours. He said he could see the wariness on law enforcement today. What are New York officials saying about this arrest?
Yeah, I mean, well, basically what we heard in that press conference once again was when asked about a key linchpin in this investigation, authorities said that there wasn't just one linchpin. This was an enormous operation by NYPD and coordinated operation by authorities, multi-state, in this investigation. So, you know, what we're going to find out is that this was something where they had to parse through so many hours of footage, so many videos and photos on social media. What they did credit was that one video of him pulling down his mask and smiling at the hostel, that was a key bit of evidence for people to see and to identify him. But, you know, this is just an enormous investigation, multi-day, multi-state, and the authorities presumably have found the suspect that they've been looking for. We'll find out more as NYPD goes to Altoona, Pennsylvania to give him a line of questioning and presumably bring him back to New York at some point.
Tom Hansen, thank you. Let's bring in CBS News legal expert and analyst Ricky Kleeman for more on this. I mean, Ricky, from a legal standpoint, all of this information that we are learning, really just a waterfall of information on what law enforcement has been able to piece together. What is your reaction?
Well, my reaction is one not of surprise for two reasons. Number one, I have a great deal of faith in the NYPD as well as the FBI. And number two, I really do believe that pushing out those photographs, they were so important to alert the public, and that the public understands that when you see something, you ought to say something. So here you simply have what sounds to be like a patron in a McDonald's who says, that looks like the guy. And that's really what it takes. It takes great law enforcement coordination, and it takes the public to be a partner.
We know that Mangione is still a person of interest in this case being questioned. If that escalates and he becomes a suspect, what sort of charges is he likely to face?
Well, we're certainly going to see him face a murder charge in New York, and he will be extradited on that charge from Pennsylvania to New York. They may add additional charges because of the firearm, because of the flight, but ultimately we're going to look at the top count, which is in fact that murder. And when you're dealing with someone who commits a murder that is premeditated and he lays in wait, that is something where you're going to find someone who may be spending the rest of his days behind a prison cell.
Ricky, what happens between now, when a person is still considered a person of interest being questioned, and when a person becomes a suspect? Is it everything that they were talking about from fingerprints and DNA testing? What happens right now?
It becomes when you're looking at it at this stage, although he is being called a person of interest, we all know in this situation he is a suspect. What will happen is that when the NYPD officers or detectives come to Pennsylvania to question him, he is certainly going to have to be advised of his rights, his Miranda warnings. And at that point, he has the right to claim an attorney and a right to remain silent. At that point, or he has a right to talk if he would like to talk. That is going to be the point when he turns from a person of interest to a suspect and, of course, to a criminal defendant.
Ricky, as someone with a defense attorney background, what would be some of the challenges here if you were representing this person as a client in terms of missteps? I mean, the fact that Mangione was carrying a firearm consistent with the weapon used in the killing of Thompson, that there were handwritten writings that expressed ill will toward corporate America, that there were fraudulent IDs, including the one that was used to check into the hostel. The fact that in this high-profile case in which there is a multi-state manhunt, this person is sitting in a McDonald's eating a meal.
What you have here is a situation which defense lawyers like to call there are facts beyond change. There are facts in this case that you cannot make them go away. They're there. So your duty as a defense lawyer is twofold. Number one, is there a deal available in any way, shape, or form for this defendant, when he becomes a defendant, to be able, if there were other people involved, to be able to say that there might be a plea deal. On the other side of that, the defense lawyer has an ethical obligation to defend this client zealously. And it looks like the facts are pretty overwhelming when you look at the evidence as it piles up into this mountain. So is there a mental illness defense, which would be something that certainly the defense lawyer would have to consider? You also have to think about the fact that this is a young man who may have been playing some kind of a game. We also know that he teased the police with what he wrote on those cartridges and bullets with the words of deny or depose or defend. We have someone who teased people with these photographs, who dropped a bag, his backpack, and it had Monopoly money in there. Is that going to help you in terms of creating a mental health defense, or is that all going to continue to hurt you? But the defense lawyer has his or her work cut out for them.
Ricky, I do want to ask the significance of the weapon here, in which law enforcement are referring it to it as a ghost gun that may have been made on a 3D printer. We've reported, CBS News has reported, capable of firing a 9mm round consistent with the casings found at the site of the killing. What is the significance of the fact that it was a ghost gun, that could have been made on a 3D printer?
Well, if it certainly turns out that this is a ghost gun made on a 3D printer, and they can show that this is the person who made that gun, it goes right back to his premeditation. It also is, I'm sorry to say, a rather sad statement about our society at this point.
Ricky Kleeman, certainly appreciate all of your time and expertise. Thank you. I want to bring in Anna Schechter back into the conversation. Anna, we've been reporting how difficult it is as the hours and days go on to locate and apprehend a suspect or person of interest. In this case, the person of interest sort of had time on his side, 5 days. Have your sources been talking to you about the challenges increasing exponentially as the days dragged on?
Well, certainly, because it just expands the area where he could have traveled to. And that's why getting those photos out to a national audience and potentially internationally, we were asking about going north. There was a concern about him going into Canada. There was that heightened concern even on the first day. The nearby airports were cased by NYPD investigators within hours of the attack. They were searching that. Long Island Railroad trains had been stopped. And when nothing was coming up, obviously that sort of upped the ante. And that's when the decision was made to put out those photos and ask the public for help. Because historically, that can be crucial to these kinds of investigations. You know, we think that we don't have any agency, that our faces everywhere because of facial recognition. But what this case shows us is that, you know, you do have a certain amount of agency, and he made mistakes, but he also did some things right by the way that he moved so quickly in order to disguise his movements.
It certainly is harder to identify somebody who is wearing a mask where only your eyes are visible. We do have that photo from that one flirtatious encounter at the hospital with the clerk in which he was smiling. But those two photos are the only full face photos that we have, the photos in the cab, outside the cab, all with a mask.
And it's also challenging. I mean, the photos of him inside the Starbucks looked a little bit different from him in the hostel. And you had sort of citizen sleuths saying, wait a minute, it doesn't look like the same person. Then later, after he committed the crime, you have a photo of him getting into a cab. This goes to his premeditation. He took the ski mask off. It appears to me that he changed his jacket and he put a surgical mask on. So at every point, he was working to evade detection, and it worked for 5 days. But harnessing the public's help was crucial in this case.
Is it your understanding and that of law enforcement that the idea of getting onto an e-bike that was not a city bike, which is a brand, I don't know if it was his personal e-bike, got on the e-bike, sort of traveled through Central Park, exiting on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, then getting into a cab to Port Authority? Are all of those movements sort of in design to evade?
Well, those movements, he clearly knew exactly where he was going. And from my reporting based on the surveillance video, he wasn't sort of hesitating and wondering where he should go. He planned this whole thing out. So he went into the alleyway right after the shooting, grabbed the bike and was pedaling. And, you know, the video that we obtained exclusively initially where he's riding down 85th Street, he is pedaling hard, but he appears calm. There's nothing that looks out of the ordinary. And that he is not acting erratically in any way. And that helped him evade detection because he wasn't drawing attention to himself. So at all those points, not drawing attention to himself, even going to the McDonald's and just sitting there quietly eating, it seemed that he was getting a little bit more brazen. The NYPD said on Friday that the entire time he was staying at the hostel, he was wearing a mask. And, you know, he didn't interact with his roommates. He was careful at that point to take off the mask and then start eating. He assumed that he was safe inside that McDonald's in Altoona.
So he is still in Altoona. What will it take for, again, he's still only a person of interest being questioned in the case, but what would it take for suspect status and extradition to Manhattan?
Well, there's a whole process here. It's not like they can just pick him up and grab him. They have to build a case and create a timeline warranting an arrest on these charges. He's now being held in Altoona on potential gun charges, illegally being in possession of this gun. Remember, there are federal laws about ghost guns and silencers, and apparently he was in possession of a ghost gun with a silencer, potentially illegally. That's what they're holding him on now. By now, the NYPD will have gotten to Altoona. They are likely there, and there's paperwork. He has to appear at a summons in Altoona before the extradition happens. The U.S. Marshals are involved. He will be transported.
What would the time frame be on that?
It could be in the next couple of days. Okay. It's unclear, but he's also going to be getting a lawyer. He has a right to counsel, as Ricky Kleeman just said. So there are a lot of different parts of this picture that have to come together, and that can take some time, even though the public might think, well, wait a minute, get him back to New York City and put him in front of a jury, but it doesn't really work like that in real life.
You and the Confirmed team have also created sort of an idea of a background of this person of interest. What can you tell us about what you've learned about him?
Well, this is someone who went to good schools and grew up in the Baltimore area. He went to the University of Pennsylvania, an exclusive Ivy League school. He graduated in 2020. He was involved in student clubs. He studied computer science. His most recent address points to Hawaii. If you look at his social media, he was posting lots of pictures of the Hawaii landscape and animals and the like. We are drilling down on his potential anti-corporate mentality and those kind of more extreme views that would push him to carry this out. So far, it doesn't appear that he has a criminal record. We're still working to firm that up.
We have been talking about it, but can you reiterate everything that was found on his person?
Yes, of course. When he was apprehended in that McDonald's in Altoona, he had a bag. He was in possession of a jacket that matched the jacket that he was wearing during the shooting. He had a computer that is now being forensically analyzed. He was in possession of a ghost gun with a silencer, capable of firing 9mm rounds. And police just said at the presser he also was in possession of the very same fake New Jersey ID that was used to check into the hostel on the Upper West Side.
I want to go back to Tom Hansen, who is still outside of New York City Hall. Tom, what has been the reaction to this news that you've been following?
Yeah, well, over the last several days, really what we've seen is kind of a glorification, unfortunately, of this suspect. And as we're looking right now on his Instagram, which we have found, he is gaining hundreds and hundreds of followers almost by the minute. So we are seeing a lot of chatter, a lot of people really honing in on who he is, very curious about any motives. Now, at first look of his Instagram, there aren't any real indications of a motive from the posts. They're pretty mundane. They're from vacation. Some of them are in Hawaii. So we're not really gleaning too many clues on his digital trail, but it is that digital trail, and it's the world that we live in now that led to his arrest. That's what authorities say. They are crediting the public with circulating those images and identifying him at that McDonald's in Altoona. But currently we are watching and monitoring his social media. Obviously, it is not active right now, considering that he is in custody. But we are gleaning through that to see if there are any clues about that ill will toward corporations, which we heard about in this press conference. Of course, we are also going to be eager to learn exactly what is in that handwritten 3-page manifesto, which authorities believe indicates a motive. But this is a person who clearly was resolute in carrying out this crime based on the trail that he led authorities on and the path that he took to get out of New York City as quickly as possible. Tons of questions, Lindsay, still left to be answered. Hopefully we will learn a lot more once we get that manifesto and we can review it.
Tom Hansen, thank you so much. I want to bring in Felipe Rodriguez. He's an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and a former detective with the New York Police Department. Felipe, thank you so much for being here. We heard in the press conference multiple times that at the end of the day, this came down to good old-fashioned police work. We also know that it came down to a tip from the public who had seen the fruits of that labor, the combing of those cameras and images that they were able to release to the public. Break down for us what the last 5 days of the investigation looked like and where this goes moving forward.
Well, at this point now, it's just putting everything ready for prosecution. If it is, the first thing we're going to do is try to get DNA evidence, right? Usually taken from a swab from the interior of your cheeks, because we also had so much physical evidence. We had the book bag, we had the Monopoly money, the jacket that was recovered. But we still have a lot more to go. And that's what people need to realize. We still have to try to recover that specific firearm. The reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania is that, yes, he was in possession of a ghost gun, but not the actual firearm that was used in the homicide. It's a very specific and unique gun. So that's why, you're still going to have the divers out there trying to get that. And another key piece of evidence that I like to see would be, getting the bicycle. And then after that, it's going to go into the forensic zone where we're going to try to get any information that we can from a cellular device.
Felipe, are you surprised it took police 5 days?
No, it's once again, I know the public speculated quite a bit, but remember, like I tell everybody, he was out here 10 days in the city, and what did we get? If it wasn't for the hostile picture, we would have had, it would have been a lot harder to ID him. Once again, we can see how the partnership of both the public, the media, and police worked well together, because if someone hadn't alerted them at the McDonald's, probably still would have been out there. And it was just the fact that no matter how good science is at times and technology, dedicated detectives at NYPD, that's what ends up solving it.
Right. Felipe Rodriguez, Anna Schechter, Tom Hansen, thank you all so much. Our thanks to Ricky Kleeman as well. We'll have more on this on the other side of this break.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me. I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah,
boy! It's gonna be a ride. We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Tom.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Here's a look at the top stories we're following right now. An arrest has been made in connection with the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO. What we're learning about a strong person of interest who is being questioned. A jury has acquitted Daniel Penny in connection with the death of Jordan Neely on a New York City subway. Emotional statement from Neely's father. And for many, the fall of the Assad regime in Syria is a reason to celebrate, while others ponder what comes next. We look at the international implications as rebels with ties to terrorism seize control and how the U.S. is responding. A man is under arrest in Pennsylvania, and police say he had a gun consistent with the firearm used to kill UnitedHealthcare CEO in Midtown Manhattan last week. Officers in Pennsylvania took 26-year-old Luigi Mangione into custody for an unrelated incident in the city of Altoona, which is roughly 2 hours east of Pittsburgh. A source says he was spotted eating at a McDonald's, and an employee called local police to tip them off. We're also told he was carrying fake IDs, including one from New Jersey that he used to check into a New York City hostel the week of the killing. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he is a strong person of interest in the case.
He matches the description of the identification we've been looking for. He's also in possession of several items that we believe will connect him to this incident.
Anna Schechter has been following this case for us and is here in Studio 57. Anna is the senior coordinating producer for our CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit. What more are we learning about this strong person of interest, and what's the difference between a person of interest and a suspect?
Well, a person of interest is wanted in questioning related to a crime. The suspect is someone that police are sure committed the crime. And so we are approaching that. The NYPD has been using person of interest because they are waiting on DNA testing to have the physical evidence to say without a doubt that this individual is the person who shot and killed the UnitedHealthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. So those photos that we initially got from the hospital where he pulled his mask down, that didn't bring up a positive ID for a specific individual, but they certainly helped in the case. And we're now 5 days out. And because those photos released, also of the weekend, we saw photos of him inside a cab wearing a different mask, but a clearer view, higher resolution photo of his eyes. That likely helped the person in McDonald say, hey, wait a minute, that guy looks enough like the person of interest that I've seen on the news that I'm going to call the police. He called the cops, called local 911, and they apprehended him there, right there at the McDonald's. He had been eating a meal and was brought in for questioning. They held him initially on a potential gun charge, illegally having a ghost gun with a silencer. And so they were able to hold him there and then start to piece together.
What else did he have on his person in connection with the killing?
He had a jacket that matches the jacket that was worn by the killer. He had a computer that is currently being analyzed. He had fake IDs, including, as you said, that New Jersey driver's license fake ID that was used to check into the hostel. So all of those things taken together have law enforcement very confident that they have the right person.
I want to bring in Felipe Rodriguez. He's an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and a former detective with the New York Police Department. Felipe, break down for us what the last 5 days of investigation looked like for the NYPD.
It's a lot of tedious work. It's long hours. It's not going home to your family. It's scouring building by building. It's the old-fashioned police work of, putting boots on the ground.
Are you saying building by building, literally on every block of Manhattan to check their CCTV?
You have to.
Wow.
It's all forensic digital evidence that we're trying to get. You don't know if he took a right, he took a left in one block, and it's difficult work. They have to end up getting all this together because you know what? That's what makes the case. That's what puts all the pieces of the puzzle in there and completes it.
What happens now? Can you elaborate on what Anna was talking about in terms of how somebody goes from a person of interest to a suspect?
We need that concise probable cause. At this time, what do we have? When we have them at a hostel, we have them dressed in that particular manner. How do we tie this individual in? Guess what? Forensic and DNA at this point. We're going to have to try to, they're going to go get a search warrant, get some DNA from the inside of his mouth, right? Correct. And then we're going to submit that and see if we actually get a hit. And then we'll be able to tie in the book bag. But think about this. We still have, pieces of evidence that are missing. We would really like to get that firearm. We're getting conflicting statements that he had a ghost gun on him at the time, not the actual gun that was used in the homicide. So there's still quite a few pieces we need to get in there.
Felipe Rodriguez, we appreciate you. Thank you. I want to bring in Jessica Levinson to give us her analysis. She's a CBS News legal contributor and a professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, big news here. So glad we have you. From a legal standpoint, what happens now that a person of interest has been arrested and identified?
Investigation and interrogation. So there's a lot of evidence, as you've been talking about all morning, to link him to these crimes. And what's going to happen is arrest, booking, and talking to him, right? They will put him in an area the police will talk to him and they will decide whether or not there's enough here to move forward with charges. And just based on the evidence that we've heard in public, it looks like there is enough here to bring the charges. They will determine which charges. And then, we're off to the races. There will be an arraignment and there will be motion practice and then either a plea or a trial.
If this person of interest becomes a suspect and faces charges in relation to the killing, when should we expect to see him extradited to New York?
This could all happen very quickly. And I wish I could say to you, I know it's going to be this afternoon or tomorrow morning, but I think the answer is we don't know. But obviously, this is not as complicated as it could be. We're in the same country and we have law enforcement cooperating. And I expect this could happen truly within just days.
I want to go back to Anna Schechter here. What other questions are you going to be asking your sources? I mean, the biggest thing obviously has been, who is this person? We have a name. We're learning more about him. Obviously, you and the team will be combing through that. But what other questions are you going to be asking? What are you looking for?
Well, there are big pictures like mental health issues. Was he getting support? Was this a mental health crisis? And Ricky Kleeman alluded to his defense attorney potentially using that in his defense. That's a big question. We are pulling his yearbook photos. His family put in loving tributes to him. It appears by all intents and purposes he was active in his school on the robotics team, did well in school. And so what was that trigger point that caused him to then turn around and plan and carry out the attack?
Felipe Rodriguez, Anna Schechter, and Jessica Levinson, my thanks to all of you.